Good morning today, 23rd July 2024. We are going to discuss editorials of The Hindu. First article here, heat stress. We'll discuss this article in detail. In recent days, as you are aware, climate change, environmental degradation have affected the safety and security and health of workers across the world. International Labour Organization, their standards of promoting fair and decent employment and also labor's efficiency and productivity had been hampered due to these heat stress. Workers, those who are working in hazardous industry, work in those conditions despite these hazards because of a lot of financial constraints. The health effect because of these heat stresses include heat stroke, heat cramps, cardiovascular diseases, acute kidney injury, and physical injury. Impact of these health effects on women is very dangerous and very deleterious. Intergovernmental panel on climate change that monitors climate change activity and guides nations across the world how to maintain the climate change related policy also told in order to normally function psychological activity by a human being, their core body temperature should be limited to 37 degree. Now, recent days, you might have aware in India, it has crossed between 38 degree to 47 degree. When it such an impact causes these heat stress had huge impact on one's thinking capacity and then physical capability during life stages. When women exposed to these heat exposed sectors, substance agriculture, India primary sector is agriculture. Many of the people depend on agriculture, especially and mostly women. So they are exposed to these heat stress related things, and then this may lead to many health impacts such as pregnancy related complications, hypertensions, miscarriages, and premature birth. It also lead to reduction in their productivity and makes them very difficult to work. And then suppose they are supposed to work at 8 hours in a day, they will work at some 6 to 5 hours in a day. International Labour Organization studied, and then their findings include because of this heat stress, there is a total reduction of work hours by 2.2%. Suppose the 8% means 2.2% of 8% means almost 1.6 hours. 1.6 hours of reduction will be there because of the fatigue. And also global GDP 2400 billion. This is very huge amount of dollars amount had been lost because of will be lost because of this heat stress. And the worst impacted people will be those who are dependent on agriculture and construction sector workers. It includes 60 and 19% because of this heat stress by 2030. Agricultural workers, they are employed in different activities. Farm workers, they are more susceptible to heat stress, that is 35 times more than any other workers working in other areas. In ILO estimate, 2.4 billion workers across world are exposed to this heat stress, and also 2.25 crore people, there were injuries, and then 18,970 people died annually because of heat stress. The most impacted regions across the world are Asia and Pacific regions, and then the gross GDP, gross domestic product losses because of heat stress and labor productivity. 1995 GDP was estimated to have decreased by 1.4% because of this heat stress, but by 2030 it may go to 2.3%. Regions such as Thailand, Cambodia, and especially India will experience significant decline in national GDP by 2030. Asia and Pacific region exhibit exceptional diversity in terms of climate and economic development in terms of various countries. Heat stress impact is not uniform. If we study in these regions, there would be a decrease of almost 5% of work hours in Southern Asia, in Western Africa. In Sub-Saharan Africa, the impact is very dangerous and very deleterious. These regions are already vulnerable to climate change and home to most poor population of the poorest of the poor people in African region. These countries are also susceptible to experiencing decreasing productivity as we discussed earlier, and the significant of their workforce employed in agriculture and construction related sectors in tropical and this this tropical and subtropical region where sun is extremely scorching in this region. So this they will face huge issues. Also, this impacts their household food security. When food security impacted, it leads to malnutrition, women-related issues such as anemia, and then further undernourishment, malnutrition, such a kind of things happen, and human development indicators grossly come down, and people living in the poverty region and out-of-pocket expenditure also goes down. Heat stress, gender disparities in workforce also hugely impacted by these deleterious effect on the environment. Also, Sustainable Development Goals has 17 number of goals. First goal is zero hunger, no hunger or zero hunger. This hunger and poverty is going to rise, and then we are not going to achieve Sustainable Development Goals, which are to be achieved by 2030. If we consider in India, 16 to 20 crore people in India will face these deadly heat waves every year. 3.4 crore people will lose their job because of these heat waves. In West Bengal, a study found that even one increase in 1 degree centigrade will approximately cause 2% in the productivity in the female brick making workers. India is a country experiences most impact of the heat stress. As you are aware, this year we have seen 47 to 48 degrees centigrade in the Indian region. The working hours also will come down to 5.8% by 2030. India is expected to significant decline in full-time employment by 2030 because of this heat stress, and further migrant workers, those who are working in hazardous industries such as petroleum, chemical, they will face a lot of issues in the informal economies. Many of the workers in India are working in informal economy. Formal economy employs very few people. They have the job security, health security, environment security, health safety, security and environment HSSC. However, when it goes to informal sector, they will face huge issues because informal workers they continue to work in the same condition because of the extreme heat climate events, because of they don't have money, because of these financial constraints. Thus, there is a huge need to strengthen these adaptation and mitigation measures at global, national, and workplace level to reduce the impact of heat stress on workers. So if we consider the measures, National Disaster Management Authority in collaboration with Ministry of Home Affairs has released several points. Preparation of action plan, prevention and management of heat waves. If we follow these guidelines, Indian workforce can be saved from this extreme heat. These are designed to help public officials create heatwave action plans both in rural and urban areas with focus on general population. These things, this include providing education to workers, ensuring their proper hydration so that proper water facilities can be provided, managing their work schedule, offering necessary medical facilities. Occupational health centers can provide them, and also general discussion committee in international labor conference can also highlight urgent need to implement these measures to ensure safety and health of the workers impacted by climate risk and extreme weather events. These include tackling their mental and physical well-being and also secure the conducive environment so that both men and women can work. At one side, we are forcing to increase labor force participation rate, especially women. Female labor force participation is heavily included. However, these heat stress can have huge impact on gender issues and also pose increase in unemployment. We need to develop sufficient infrastructure. International labor standard need to be implemented. India has implemented 4 labor codes, labor code on wages, labor code on safety, security, and many other things. So these labor codes need to be amended and these need to be included. Then they need to be provided suitable working condition. Further, the communication between the workers and employment should be properly designed so that worker can come at their desired working hours, and they should be given proper rest breaks, and they should be provided access to drinking water, and then training should be provided how to manage these heat stresses. These things can help alleviate adverse effect of heat stress on the people. Also, government need to think of green jobs since temperature is growing. So there is an alternate need for green job. Green job will help protect the environment but also provide social and economic well-being of the individual. Government and NGOs and lobby groups shall come and devise legislative and regulative measures in occupations so that these heat waves can be utilized. So you can think of green job means renewable energy. Renewable energy employment can help them to come out of these related issues. So the next article is state-sponsored street art. These things, what you see on the walls is known as murals. Murals, images. Once upon a time, these images used to generate certain kind of opinion towards people. They mobilized people towards independence. But nowadays, these murals have become attractive place. So this article we will discuss in detail. Indian cities are growing and the roads are accommodating different user needs. In this case, a state-sponsored public art become important point in the from the point of state. Recently, artists have commissioned various kind of art on the street walls, see, such as leafing dolphins, large flowers. You might have never seen those kind of large flowers for decorative purpose. They might have arranged on that Mickey Mouse and romanticized storm type of village women. Women basically face a lot of issue, romanticization of them and depicting on them wall. These things generally annihilate our culture, and also they transcend to different areas, houses, schools, hospitals, government buildings, and religious institutions. They have been depicted. They have destroyed our culture, they destroyed our history. And then the new social movements, suppose say they are social movement working against government, they draw less inspiration from these streets. Traditionally, in olden days, these streets were very significant because those who rose in power, those who came to independence, always protested in the streets. If you say Indian independence movement, it started in 1857 Sepoy Mutiny, and then 1947 we gained independence. During this time, our freedom fighters were fighting across the street. If you go to South Africa, you know, undisputed leader Nelson Mandela had also fought in the street. This street displayed huge images. This street conveyed values. These streets were institutions that brought changes, that brought integrity across the government. But today, these streets have gone to different changes. They are just depicting the images. They, the streets are mark of revolution, revolution against the government, revolution against justice, revolution against injustice, revolution against you know oppressive human practices. In 1857, Sipahi Mutiny had happened. People had come in street, and then they fought against the British government. They dislocated the British government. In 1942, you might have seen people have fought in the street. Huge number of people were mobilized, and then they fought against Quit India movement. That is Quit India. That movement became very famous, and it is one of the turning point in which we got independence. Also, Ram Leela actors in Varanasi, devotees of Durga Mata in Kolkata, they brought Mother Durga to their neighborhoods. Lord Ganapati escorted with families to the seaside, and Tajia procession in Muharram in Hyderabad also bears these street side movements. These streets and these edge of the roads always functioned as an extension to these revolutions. Also, if we go to rural part of India, Mughal era brick and lime plaster walls all depicts emotional ties with our invaders, emotional ties with our ancestral homelands, emotional ties with our freedom fighters, and then our historical ties. Very good monochromatic concrete wall drawn world attention when these were admired with ornament. So the basic necessity what we are going to discuss is these motifs need to replace with state attention to them. The state need to create them. Today, state-sponsored wall text and image they depict conservation of the nature and protecting the public health, protecting diluting the forest loss, demodifying the forest loss. These things can be prevented. Huge gallons of paint has been used in these paints, and then this can also contribute to environmental degradation and environmental pollution. Industrial paints disintegrate because of the humidity. They go with water and they cause and then ultimately end up in our food chain. When it goes in food chain, ultimately consumer is top consumers, carnivores. So it will end up, and then a lot of toxins are there today, cause of cancer, cause of a lot of health impacts because of these issues. What kind of alternative can be searched? The government want to promote biodiversity. Street walls should be properly depicted. Dry stone walls. Suppose say you might have gone to some city, you might have seen some walls wherein those walls are made up of boulders. Boulders means stones, and then in that stones you might find some trees are growing, some trees and bushes might be growing. Those trees, if you paint these things with whatever we discussed, socially beneficial messages on these walls, it definitely convey the message, but also reduce environment pollution. The facade, the wall where you have painted, the loss of paint is also very less. Further, you don't need to focus on many other issues. Traffic pollution also causes these paints to pigment to go down and all. So basically, other steps such as cities such as Dehradun and Guwahati, they don't use wall paintings. Instead, railway authorities, cantonment boards, and municipalities sidewalks, and they clean sewers, they preserve the monuments, and create spaces for performing artists. When performing artists perform in the street, a lot of people observe and then culture will be transferred. So this thing will help citizens to understand their heritage by providing the context. Government agencies, those who want to nurture the pride in India, they can put things in museum. We can learn from Berlin Wall. When Germany was invaded post Cold War, German Berlin Wall was constructed. After that, when disintegration of before disintegration of USSR and formation of Russia, this Berlin Wall was broken. A lot of artists came to this Berlin Wall and then they have drawn many other paintings. Those paintings depicted the essence of the democracy, save democracy, democracy, government for the people, by the people, to the people. These democratic ideas have been transferred. So government should focus on all these things. So thank you. Thank you very much for your discussion.